Pacers look good for 40 minutes in Philly. The last 8 minutes, yikes, such a mess. They fall to the Sixers by 15. Joel Embiid crushes them again in a weird game. The Pacers not happy at the end. They can't score for 8 minutes. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday/weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin, and today, the Pacers are back. The Cup Break Part 1 is over. There was a chance to see this team's level. Are they really rolling like their 4-6 wins suggested? Are the Sixers going to be better with them? No Tyrese Maxey, and the Pacers still cannot overcome the Sixers, albeit against a vintage, excellent Joel Embiid performance. Pacers looks good for 40 minutes. The last 8 minutes, completely dreadful. They couldn't score at all. The Sixers ran away with it. A lot to get to with fouling, with balance, with defense on Embiid, and all sorts of stuff that all matters, to be clear. I'm not trying to diminish anything that happened in this game, but there's 4 games, I would say, I made that number up. You know, there's 3 to 5, something in that range games a year where I just leave the game going, that was weird. Like something in that game just felt weird to me. And this is the first one I feel like I've had that reaction to this season. There was a game when the Pacers got smoked by the Pistons in the NBA Cup last year. I remember walking away from that game being like, that was just weird. Like Detroit just made a bunch of junk and stuff. Same thing when the Pacers lost to the Sixers 2 years ago. In Philly, if I recall correctly. I've had a couple games like this. And today's was weird because the game starts off and the Pacers are 10th in pace and the Sixers are 17th, and there's no Tyrese Maxey, and the Sixers are just flying around. And VJ Edgecombe is like doing everything, and Paul George looks Brian is getting around, and all these Sixers things are happening. I was like, whoa, they're flying. They're really moving. The Sixers have some pop that I didn't expect early in this game. And their early pace was crazy, and the Pacers were playing a little slower, and they survived this Edgecombe thing, and the Pacers transition defense stunk. And then the first quarter ends, and the Pacers are down like 3 or 4 or something, and they show the points in the paint graphic on the broadcast, and the Pacers are up 16-8. And I thought, man, if the Pacers are getting in the paint way more often and the game speed has evaded them, if they can just keep getting there and get this pace settled to one that they like, they'll feel great. The Sixers can't keep playing this way the whole time. Like, this style suits the Pacers. And instead, basically from the second quarter on, the Sixers slowed it down to the Paul George Embiid pace you'd expect, and the Pacers never quite got their zip back in that way. Now, their offense still was good the whole game, but I thought that style flip early that was favoring the Sixers actually helped the Pacers, and it did in the third quarter, but the Pacers offense fell apart late. That was the first weird thing that happened in this game. Among many that just were extremely, extremely odd to me. Joel Embiid completely exploding, coming alive in the second quarter after a slow start, and he has not been nearly as good this season until he gets going to 39. The Pacers offense humming for much of the second half, and then just falling apart completely in the final 8 minutes. That was all still weird. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff that made no sense, and yet it still happened and felt really odd, and the Sixers made a bunch of tough shots. So to their credit, it's not a detriment to them or anything like that. So the story of this game to me is twofold. You pick your poison on what you think was the bigger cause of concern for the Pacers in this game between Joel Embiid and the final 8 minutes of the game. I'll start at the end with the final 8 minutes for me personally, because even with Embiid cooking, he only had 6 points in the fourth quarter. I can't remember. He had 6 points in the fourth. It's not like he in the last frame was the difference. And yet the Pacers got smoked in that fourth period, 25-15. 25's good. The Pacers defense got better and better and better throughout this game. They started to mix in some zones. They were shutting down non-Embiid guys really well. They were just getting going in that way. Siakam was getting going in the second half after a quieter first half. Andrew Nembhard had 11 points in the third quarter. All of a sudden, it felt like the Pacers had all this pop and energy and were making shots and getting to places that they wanted, and everything felt great. And then with 8 minutes and 24 seconds to go, Siakam bounces in a floater, crazy weird bounce, and the Pacers go up 95-100 at that time. They hit 100 first. Lawler's losses, they win the game. 8:24 to go when that Siakam shot bounced in. The Pacers took 14 shots from the field the rest of the game. One of them went in. One. Jarris Walker misses a 3. TJ McConnell, who played very well in the first half, misses a 9-foot shot that he had been hitting all night. Ethan Thompson, who's been warm, missed a 3. I got to talk about him later. Then Mathurin, he got a rebound. Siakam misses a midi that he'd been hitting all night. Ethan Thompson again misses a 3. Ethan Thompson makes some free throws. Andrew Nembhard misses from 5 feet. Siakam misses a 10-foot fadeaway that he's made 1,000 times this season. Mathurin misses at the cup. J Huff makes a 3, cuts it to 3. Feels like the Pacers still have some life. Then Siakam missed at the basket. J Huff missed 3. J Huff missed 3. Andrew Nembhard missed 3, and it's over. How many times did I just say miss? Count them up. It's 13. They couldn't make anything. The shots were shots that they are comfortable with, that they've been making throughout the game, that they can make. On average, they probably make 5 of those, but they weren't like super, super easy. Credit to the Sixers in some ways for that, and we will talk about that on 2 of them. The Pacers were very clearly fouled in a game that fouls were being called quite a lot, by the way. But they weren't in this instance, and so the Pacers couldn't score, and so the Sixers team that has been reliant on game flow to kind of get their pace going, which is why I set the scene at the beginning the way I did, they were going off of boards a lot, and all of a sudden VJ Edgecombe's getting fouled, or Don Barlow's getting to a floater that he likes. That happened many times late in this game. He was quite good late. Or Embiid's finally scoring again, or Paul George is getting the cup. It was a slow bleed, but for 8 minutes, the Pacers made 1 shot. 1 shot. Like, you just lose. 20-5 was the score in the last 8 minutes of this game. Giving up 20 points in 8 minutes isn't good, to be clear, but I'm not like so devastated if I'm the Pacers by that. That's a 30-point quarter allowed. That's not good, but that's not so bad in the current NBA. Scoring 5 points in 8 minutes is just dreadful. Just absolutely horrible, horrible stuff. I mean, that's what cost the Pacers in this game, truly. They were in pole position to win late, and they just couldn't make anything in the final minutes of this basketball game. That, to me, was the big story. The second one was Joel Embiid, vintage. And vintage, especially true if you're a fan of the Indiana Pacers, because he has just destroyed this franchise for years. Last year, he barely played. He only had 1 game against the Pacers. It was not particularly impressive. 2 years ago, he had 37, 39, and 31 against the Pacers. Like, this is just what Joel Embiid versus the Pacers has been for forever. Now, he has not been this player this year. He hasn't had a 30-point game yet entering this game this whole season. I understand that he's not the top of the scouting report anymore, but the Sixers played different-ish without Maxey. Like I said, their pace felt a little different. Edgecombe was rolling early. After that, a little bit of Paul George here and there, but it was the Embiid show. And he took 18 free throws. We will get to this, I promise. He made 12 shots, and they were a lot of them. Like, we're in the paint. You'll look at this game and go, man, he must have been getting to the rim with all these paint shots. They were like mid-range shots where he's shooting over a defender kind of stuff, or turnaround stuff. Like, remember Olympics Embiid that helped USA beat Serbia? It was those kind of shots, a lot of them. Some of them, the Pacers could have done better defensively. The second quarter in particular, they were a little late to crowding him or making life hard on him. And Lloyd Pierce does the halftime interview on the FanDuel Sports Indiana broadcast. And that's basically what he said, right? It was something that he found concerning to that point in the game, right? When Jeremiah Johnson asked him about Embiid and transition defense, he said, we have to pick him up a little bit higher, show him a greater crowd. The third quarter starts, and they're doing that. Like, the first shot Embiid hit, the crowd was coming. Ethan Thompson a little too late on the downward rotation. Then the Pacers went zone, and he starts cutting him up in different ways, right? I have a lot of Embiid notes. First off, he was too much for Isaiah Jackson early. That was not surprising. We'll get to Isaiah Jackson, but the center rotation for Philly, too much for him. So Embiid's killing him, so they go zone. He instantly just dimes up an assist to Don Barlow. Then he fakes Ethan Thompson, young kid, spry, all this energy, just jumps way too high, draws a foul. He was just drawing fouls a bunch at that point. And he was even laboring for part of this. They couldn't stop him. He comes in down 2 in the fourth and was too much for the Pacers. This is what Joel Embiid can be capable of, but he has not been this year. He is certainly getting healthier. He talked after the game about like playing in more games, but that was the other story of the game to me for the Pacers, is that a Sixers team without their best player, and Tyrese Maxey, had someone else step up and be by far the best player in this game in Joel Embiid, who just had a throwback offensive night and made 10 of his 15 twos and 13 free throws. And the Pacers in the first half didn't adjust quick enough. His second quarter was just fantastic stuff for Embiid, 14 or 15 points in that quarter. And the adjustments they did make in the second half, you could see them happening, and he still found ways to cut up the defense. And Isaiah Jackson, who can be effective against slower players, was not particularly effective defensively in this game. He was awesome on the offensive glass. He had some powerful dunks. We'll talk about him, but they couldn't play him enough. And he had 3 fouls that took him out for Tony Bradley. Like it just how it went for him. Huff's a little too slow-footed to stick in this matchup. Huff goes 4 for 12 in this game. Defense wasn't there. He did have 3 blocks, sure, but he was minus 16. You could see the struggles he was having. This is a game where blocks and defensive impact do not match, even though he did block shots. That's a good thing. So all of this together is the biggest reasons the Pacers lost. They will walk away knowing that those two things cost them. And by the way, they shot under 40% from the field. You're not going to win like hardly ever when you do that. That said, you guys, if you listen a lot, if you're an everydayer, you know Tony East is very, 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 very rarely a guy who actually talks about officiating, because I very, very, very rarely think it's a huge factor in a game. 3 techs for the Pacers in this game. Andrew Nembhard got one on double tech with VJ Edgecombe. That was super weird. Like Mathurin and Edgecombe were like giving each other a bunch of respect for the way they were playing. And those free throws for Mathurin. And then all of a sudden Nembhard gets a double tech. I thought that was goofy. I think the play-by-play might have that wrong. Then Nembhard gets fouled on a shot in the fourth quarter. Clear foul even on the replay. Didn't get called. He was hot with the ref. Siakam had to like hold him back. Carlisle got a tech on that one. And then Siakam got fouled on a floater he took that bounced off the rim that he got a tech for in the second half. Like, don't get me wrong. The Pacers fouled a lot in this game. They had 27 fouls. That I believe is their second most in a game this season. My notes on the foul count are somewhere else. I'll pull them up while I'm talking. Like, that has to be better. I do think the Pacers fouled a lot in this game. I don't think it's crazy that they finished the game with a lot of fouls. Yes, that was their tied for their third most of the season in fouls. And of course, the double overtime game is going to be first. 43 free throws were filled for the second most the Pacers have allowed. Now, the foul difference of 8, the 19 fouls for the Sixers, that was the second largest gap for the Pacers this year. The largest one was that game in Golden State where they just got completely mollywopped by the Warriors. So there were a lot of fouls being called. That's fine. If they're calling the same thing all night, a lot of fouls is fine. The Pacers Thunder game from opening night, there was 91 free throws or whatever, but they called like everything, right? In this game, they were doing that. They were calling everything. The Pacers were committing the fouls that the refs had said that's a foul tonight. And then all of a sudden, those 2 plays in the fourth, they just weren't for the Pacers. That was very frustrating to them. They couldn't score already. They'd given away their lead. They were already frustrated, and it boiled over into techs. And that wasn't why the Pacers lost, but I understand their frustration, and my fans were so frustrated at the end of that one. And Carlisle first answered postgame, asked about the end of the game, said there were a couple calls I thought we could have gotten. Can I say that without getting fined $40,000? Then he said, I'm going to fight for our guys. Every play is meaningful. Clearly a factor to some extent, but not the factor to me in the Pacers loss, among many things that went wrong for the Pacers in the final stretch. So many things that I want to talk about from this game. I have notes on, I think, 10 players from this game. We have so much to talk about as we keep going for Pacers Sixers on today's Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, I need to tell you about Zocdoc. It's 2025. It's almost 2026, and those days of waiting for something to become a full-blown emergency before you see a doctor, they are over. No more walking it off for 6 months. No more pretending that weird shoulder stiffness is just sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously, and Zocdoc makes that easier than ever, because staying healthy is more than hitting the gym or eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels off, and Zocdoc makes it easy with easy scheduling, where you can search for in-network doctors and book right in the app. Real appointment times are listed, even same-day visits. No more back-and-forth phone calls, waiting for weeks to be seen. You can get super helpful routine checkups. For those little issues, you can compare providers. Your health can be a priority. And when you don't want to wait weeks, it needs to be. So stay on top of your health before something becomes a bigger problem with a quick, clean app, and stop putting off your doctor's appointments. Get the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day, or second listen, Locked On Sixers. Here from the other side of this, the Joel Embiid game, as they will be calling it. Although VJ Edgecombe was very good and Paul George did some stuff. And thank you for being an everydayer. If you listen every day, especially on the weekend, the Everydayer Club is a thing that exists now. If you want to be a part of an exclusive Locked On Discord and get ad-free episodes of Locked On Pacers, that is for you. There's a link in the description of this podcast for that. I'll put out a little more blurbs on that next Monday. Okay, this game. I have so many player things that I thought were interesting in this game because, like, at halftime, you look up, and I didn't know how to feel about this. but in general, you think it's kind of good. At halftime, you look up at the scoreboard. The Pacers' 3 leading scorers. So much discussion of late has been centered around the big 3, the best 3, whatever you want to call it, of Nembhard, Siakam, and Mathurin. Those 3 guys at halftime combined for 15 points. 1 for 4 for Mathurin, 3 for 9 for Siakam, 2 for 6 for Nembhard. To be clear, that's not good, but the Pacers were only down 5 because they were led by these 3 players in double digits. 4 for 7 from the field for 10 points for Ethan Thompson, 3 for 8 from the field with 3 threes for Jay Huff. He had 10 points, and a dominant 6 for 7, including a 3 from TJ McConnell, who had 13 points. Those 3 were awesome, and it's very rare you get that kind of role player responsibility to keep you in it. And that's another way I thought that, man, if the stars just get going or the best guys get going, the Pacers can win this game. I mean, that was the double-digit guys at halftime, but then the Pacers got down 11 and they erased it. Like, it felt like a lot of stuff that they just kept correcting their problems. They fixed their defensive issues. They were doing better against Embiid. They got their stars going, and then they fell flat on their face for 8 minutes. I got a kick out of Tyrese Maxey tweeting good process about his teammates while watching from home with an illness, and then his team immediately giving up an 8-point lead. Okay, let's talk about some players. First off, Ethan Thompson had an interesting game to me. Starting again, deserves the role, played 32 minutes and 45 seconds. And this game, the stats felt better than the production to me. Like, early in the game, he felt like a sage vet. He was making shots. He had 3 assists. He had no turnovers in this game. He did foul out, though. And that's where you saw the young guy stuff. 3 assists were nice. 2 boards were nice. He does a lot of stuff. But the fouls were there in a way that he finally looked young. In this game, I mentioned the Embiid fake earlier. But his defensive impact felt way lower to me, even though he had some scoring. And 10 shot attempts for Ethan Thompson, 7 of them on threes. He's wide open. And that there's a reason for that, to be clear. He's probably the least threatening perimeter player in that starting 5, and he's not even on really scouting reports yet. We'll see where his three-pointer settles, but he missed a lot in the fourth quarter of this game that I thought, man, I get shooting wide open shots. I'm going to be a guy who is fine with that shot almost all the time. I probably am, honestly, in this game. Maybe it just felt worse because he was missing them, but I was like, 10 shots for Ethan Thompson. Is that right? Who knows? But he still overall played a fine game and should continue to play minutes for the Pacers. Isaiah Jackson, early, dunking everywhere, which was crazy. He looked awesome, and then it settled in that he was going against Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid, 2 historic Pacers killers. That's just a tough duo for him, right? Their strengths are tough for what he is. He had a couple plays where you saw him throwing around his new look strength in a way on defense that made me feel good about what he might be growing into in this game. And then he had some foul issues, and out he went for Tony Bradley. He just didn't quite have enough in this game. Siakam in this one was really interesting. He had a beautiful assist to Ethan Thompson on the first possession. There was a stretch of the third quarter where he was the only guy going for the Pacers inside the arc. But then he left the game with the Pacers up 5, and he had, I think, 20 points at the time, which is what he finished with. This is his normal rotation, right? He is a rare star. People forget this every game somehow, and people ask me about it. Please keep an eye on this, that it happens all the time. Pascal Siakam is a rare star in that he's a 3-stint player. Most NBA stars play the first 9 to 10 minutes of the first half, and then the last 9 to 10 minutes, and then the same thing happens in the second half. Probably closer to 8, right? So it's, if you spread out 8 minutes every quarter, you get to 32 minutes. So they play 2 stints a half, the first and last 8 minutes. Siakam plays like 5.5 to 6 minutes, and then sits for a bit, and then plays late first, early second, and then sits a little bit, and then closes. So he came out at a normal rotation, and it's not like the Pacers had this horrible bench game or anything where you'd think that subbing Siakam out would be like deadly. Obviously, they're going to be worse. He's their best player, but it just sunk them. They lost all sort of rhythm at that moment of the game, and so all the questions come in like usual. Why did he take Siakam out? Because he always does. They always do in these moments, and you can say, well, it was a close game. They should have done it that time. Sure, that's fine. I understand that critique. They lost the game, but I mean, my God, we're less than a month removed from the biggest topic being, are they playing Siakam too much? Like, what is this really about? You know, it was very interesting to think about all this. So, interesting Siakam game. He was slow starting, but got going in the second half. He took the toughest defensive assignments a lot of the night. TJ McConnell was kicking butt early. VJ Edgecombe was having no fun defending him. Another, you can apply this to lots of guys. I love talking about this kind of stuff, but I love when young players are going against a crafty vet and they just see moves they've never seen or shots they've never seen. They just can't guard him. 8 points in the first quarter for McConnell, 11 points in 4 minutes. For him, he finished with 13. So he didn't, in his next 13 minutes of play, he scored 2 points, but he had 15 and 5 and was +9. He was quite good in this game. I enjoyed watching that. I just did TJ McConnell. Andrew Nembhard, He was one of the few guys getting to the cup with any consistency to me. The Pacers were taking a few too many mid-rangers. They have a lot of guys who can hit him. He only had 7 at halftime, but was great in the third quarter, scoring 11 in that quarter. And the Pacers ran more McConnell plus Nembhard than they have of late in this game. I thought that was noteworthy. I also thought that was happening because it was not a good game for Ben Mathurin. I have no notes on him because he was very quiet and invisible, and that's not a good thing. 2 for 8 in this game for Ben Mathurin, 1 for 4 from DP. Did have 5 boards and 2 assists. That's great. But he only had 7 points, by far a season low from him. He just kind of felt invisible. And I thought that was really, really perplexing. I couldn't tell if it was him not being assertive enough or the team not getting him the ball enough. I would like to watch this back to get a better feel for that. But I mean, they obviously need more from him than they got in this game. And some of that's on the team and some of that is, of course, on him. If you didn't watch the game, try to find a highlight of Garrison Matthews' his second made 3 in this game. He went 2 for 6. It's not like he was a great shooter or anything in this game. Just he was plus 13. His spacing still has this immense impact on the Pacers offense. His second 3 was on the move, jump, flick, Doug McDermott-esque in a way that I'm just like, man, it's so obvious that that's why they kept him. Like, who can do that on this team? Nobody else. I'm not saying he played particularly well, but it was still just like a wow. Like, I get why they did it, even though it's not what I would have done. Jay Huff was the powerful center on Embiid for this game, and he still could not keep up with him from side-to-side foot speed. Stuff was just a little too far away from him on jumpers because he was anticipating the drive or the bump. You know, these are the kind of games where their centers are showing why the rumors come out about the Pacers wanting a starting level center. Jarris Walker, man. I mean, it's really getting really hard to talk about Jarris Walker because he's just so up and down. 18 minutes tonight, 7 boards. That's great. Right, that's something they've wanted to see from him. He was second on the team in rebounds. He had power on the glass. He had force there, and that's kind of it. 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, 1 for 4 from the field. Kalen Cooper tweeting about a possession where he clearly didn't know or run the play correctly. He had a heads-up play where he hit a cutter. That was great, but he just kind of looked lost a lot. In this game, he was all over the place with up and down kind of plays. It's just been really, really weird to see him play this season. Tony Bradley was balling. He played 8 minutes and 40 seconds when Isaiah Jackson got some foul issues. And he was their best stocky center for the defense they needed tonight. He had an awesome running on the move dunk. That was really enjoyable. I have a ton of notes about the bad and good things the Pacers did in this game. But I don't want to run through too many of these. I thought the Pacers transition defense was really bad early in this game when the Sixers were dominating the pace and speeding it up a little bit more than the Pacers wanted. That was very noteworthy because the Pacers defense has been better of late, but I've never felt like their transition defense was problematically bad. If anything, it's been quite good. It was not in this game. Jabari Walker was a problem for the Pacers early in this game. He was taking a ton of free throws. He finishes the night with 8 attempts. No one on the Pacers had more than 5. That is not an officiating thing to me. The Pacers were clearly fouling Jabari Walker, but he was giving him quite a few problems early in this game. The Pacers defense was just kind of a step slow early. That's why they were fouling a lot. That's why they were just a little bit too far away from some jump shooters. You know, I put that their defense was meh early, and yet they were still up in the points in the paint. It was just a very odd start in a way that I thought, okay, maybe they'll be able to do this. There's a couple of moments where lineups like this popped up on the floor where it's like Ethan Thompson, Garrison Matthews, TJ McConnell, Jay Huff are all out there together. I'm like, how is this group supposed – oh, Jarris Walker was out there too. Like, how is that group supposed to be dynamic enough to score? And then they hit 2 threes in a row. I'm like, oh, okay. So I need to be more trusting, and I think we all do, of TJ McConnell as a creator. I always talk about having 2 of the Siakam, Nembhard, Mathurin trio on the floor. I still believe the Pacers should, but if they're going to have one of them and McConnell's still out there, there's still enough, just enough for the Pacers to have offensive potency. That group gave the Pacers their first lead of the game. All of the Pacers turnovers to me felt like just ugly live ball craziness. Like they didn't have a ton in this game. They actually finished with only 7 in the game. They had 6 in the first half, but the 6 in the first half all felt like ghastly, awful. Oh, that just gave the Sixers a free basket. And the numbers didn't bear that out, but the transition chances certainly did. Last note from this game, it didn't end up mattering at all because they didn't play, but Quentin Jackson, who played for the Boom the night before and was pretty good. I finally got a chance to watch that earlier in the day, was active and healthy. So he's back. It's going to be hard for him to crack in to the rotation because he's going to have to get either an off-ball guard. I mean, he's not going to be a point guard in this group. He's going to have to find an off-ball guard role. So he's got to replace a wing. And the current wing group that he'd be chasing is Ethan Thompson, Johnny Furphy, Garrison Matthews, and Jarris Walker. Perhaps you could pick a couple of those guys that you could make an argument Quentin should play over, but it's not easy. It's not an easy choice. And for the first time this season, active for a game. Cam Jones, I was surprised by that. I think still his debut this season could come for the Boom, who have a home game Saturday night. We'll see if he plays. But he was active. He was available. He just didn't play for the Pacers. We will keep an eye on that and talk about it if necessary. Pacers Wizards on Sunday, then back to cup practices next week. Thank you all for tuning in on the weekend. You can find me on social media at Tony R. East and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Back Monday talking Pacers Wizards and maybe some Cam Jones in the G League if relevant. Thank you all so much for listening today. We'll see you very soon.